To this Facebook Live session where we're going to explore the power of intention. I wanted to have some fun today when I was thinking about the session to make it a little experiential and interactive. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and just look at a little bit what we mean by intention and how intention affects life as we experience it, from my perspective, from my understanding. So a little bit the big picture first, some of the science around intention, and then we're going to try some activities with some technology that I've had for a while that came out of the work at Princeton University, where they did the Princeton Engineering Anomalies research, where I have a random event generator and a mind lamp that respond to our intention. Now, I've done this in groups before, live, where we've impacted this technology through our collective intention. It'll be the first time that I've tried it virtually, so we will see how that works. So let me just start us off with a little bit of a framing around what are we actually doing when we work with our intention, and just share with you my understanding of how the world fits together. So this I created a number of years ago when we were exploring this with the Center for Human Emergence in the Netherlands as 3 levels of architecture is the way I've explained it. So material architecture we would call like the material level of reality that we all see around us the whole time, that we can touch, feel, sense, smell, the results that we create in our organizations, etc. What we have realized over time is that if we get the relationships right in our organizations and in our families and things, if the relationships are flowing well, then the material architecture manifests a lot more clearly and gracefully. So there's been a lot of consulting done around Theory U and the art of hosting and these various technologies that basically help people get good relationships in organizations, and they can see how that impacts then the actual results in the organization. Now, so I was doing that work for a while and then realized that as the complexity of the challenges were increasing, so were the complexity of the solutions that were needed, and just working at the relational level still wasn't enough to deal with the complexity of what we were having to face. So that's when we started exploring this whole idea of energetic architecture, there being another layer to our reality, which we can't see, like the quality of relationships. We can't actually see and touch, right, like the physical stuff around us, but we do have a feeling for it. But at another level of subtleness, there is the level where information and energy exist around us, in the same way that a lot of us know at individual level, people will do healing or Reiki, and what they're really doing is working with your individual energetic architecture, you could say. But anything which has a name and a boundary has these levels of architectural levels of manifestation, really, you could say, material, relational, and energetic. So when we work with our intention, we're working at the level of the energetic architecture. And that then impacts the relational and impacts the material, not in a direct causality, but it increases the probability of something manifesting. So if you think about these as dimensions of reality, another way to explore that is like comparing it to the light spectrum. So there's a certain part of the light spectrum that we can actually see, but there's a big part of the light spectrum that we can't actually see. So if we think about reality in the same way, what we call matter or material reality is the bit of the spectrum we can see, but what exists at the energetic and informational level is there, but we just can't witness it, most of us. You know, some people can see auras, for example, or can see kind of elements of the energetic dimensions. Maybe they're stretching their bandwidth a bit either side here. But so that's the idea, that as we work with intention, we're actually starting to work in the dimensions that we can't visibly see, but which are there, and which a lot of the science is now proving is there. So the way I picture this is like this. Essentially, both the science is showing how things are organized as toruses. So this is a torus that flows like that, in and out. And both individuals have a torus energy running through us. Trees, everything does. Basically, everything has a torus flow to it, and everything is spinning. So that whole torus is spinning and moving. And what's going on is that what you can see as the subtle level, that's what our kind of subtle energy field basically looks like, and our intention is working at that level, and that's what's influencing what comes into the material realm. Now, Buckminster Fuller, who some of you might have heard of, came up with this image of what he called the jitterbug. And the jitterbug is basically a collection of the Platonic solids that breathe in and out in the process of manifestation. So if you're not familiar with the Platonic solids, they're down there in the left-hand corner of the screen. And the Platonic solids are the geometric forms that make up all matter. So what's happening in this jitterbug is that it's moving through these Platonic solids to bring things into manifestation. So literally, reality is like a big breath. It's breathing in and out, connecting the informational and the subtle realms into the manifest realms the whole time, moving quite literally through this Platonic geometry that we all accept are the founding blocks of reality. So another way to look at this, if this is the torus sphere, but then in a 2D dimension, so the dotted lines you could think of as being the membrane, the outer layer of the torus. Another way to think about it is that manifestation or life is created through a creative tension between the current reality and the potential for something to happen. So a niche in the ecology, we would say, from an ecological perspective, there's a need for something to manifest, and there's a creative tension between where we are now and the potential there we could be at. And it's in that creative tension between those two poles that it pulls this torus into motion. So it starts the manifestation process. And this is really important when thinking about intention, because what our intention is doing is it's setting up a creative tension between what is now and what we desire to be. So it's literally triggering a manifestation process and pulling information from the subtle realms, increasing the probability that it's going to come into manifestation. Manifestation happens at this 90-degree plane at the middle. So as things come in, they then manifest in this way, which you'll see in a picture of the galaxy in a minute, how that shows up. So the way I talk about it is that you have this potential and you have this seed. They create this dynamic flow. So this is the torus, right? Breathing in and out like this. You have the container around the outside, which holds all the information of that particular entity. Its information field. People talk about an akashic field. The information is held on the membrane or the brain, or the outer skin of the system. And then you have the dynamics that pull that information through into energy, where it's flowing as potential and possibility through those dynamics into the manifest. Now, my whole PhD dissertation goes into how this is actually a reflection of the Trinity, where you could say you've got the Father, container, Son, manifest, Holy Ghost dynamics or spirit, the flow. And that Trinity that you see here is reflected across nearly all spiritual traditions. And in my in the thesis, my PhD thesis, you can see how I've mapped them all out. But they're all telling the same story of the manifestation process. You have an outer layer of wholeness, of oneness. You have the dynamics that's pulling that into this relative manifest world. And right at the center of it is black hole dynamics. And in the black hole, things are popping in and out of reality. So in terms of physics, the smallest layer they've got to is the plankton, the Planck length. And the Planck length, tiny, tiny, tiny elements that connect everything up, but they pop in and out of reality. They're popping in and out the whole time. And that's what goes on at the black hole. So right at the center of the torus, you've got the source of everything in a way. And if you think about a torus doing this and then that, it means that that essence is reflected right at the center and right at the extreme as well. So there's this breathing process going on that's bringing things into manifestation. And it's our intention is reflecting and influencing the dynamics that go on here, because we are putting information with our intention into the system, which is influencing the probability of what it is that comes into manifest form here. Now, that's all kind of theoretical. That's the way I make sense of it. I make sense of the results that I've come across through the research that has been done, in a way, a theory of how life works, how you can connect up more spiritual concepts with more scientific concepts, how we move from possibility and the invisible realities right into manifestation. But these folks at Princeton University actually spent 28 years researching how your intention affects reality around you. And the way it happened was that Bob Jahn, who you can see on the left of that photo, a student approached him with some interesting data that he was actually a rocket scientist. The student approached him with data she'd found showing that the inner state of the pilots on the spacecraft seemed to be influencing the instruments. So if they were more stressed, they were creating a certain effect on the instruments, which was, of course, a very important fact, because that meant that the instruments weren't objective. They were being influenced somehow by the pilot. So she continued to do that research and brought some more results back to Bob, who found the science convincing enough to start a research project at Princeton University in the engineering department to work out what was going on. And they called it the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research. Anomalies are things that don't fit the current theories, the current understanding. And the evidence grew so much over that period. They spent 28 years continuing to research it, continuing to respond to the scientific community's demand for more evidence. And what they were basically doing was they had a machine, you can see down in the bottom right, and we'll actually be working with one of these towards the end of the call. And what it is, it's like a coin flipper. It like flips a coin extremely fast. And if you flip a coin, then normally you'd get 50-50 results coming out of it. And what they were doing was having people try to influence which way the coin was going, as it were. In this image here, it's basically you're influencing whether the line goes up or the line goes down. And they had many different games, as it were, that to test out whether people could influence somehow the way things would go, which would otherwise appear to be random. And after doing this for all these years and thousands of people through this research and massive amounts of data, they concluded beyond statistical doubt. So the likelihood statistically of what they found being chance is now 1 in a billion by traditional scientific standards. So what they found is that people without any physical contact with any of these machines could influence what would normally be a random processing, could influence that purely through their intention. They could be the other side of the world influencing it. And they actually also discovered that they could influence it outside of the time spectrum. So going back into the past. It's amazing experiments and amazing data. Well worth following up. The video that I show up there, the DVD with their conclusions, the pair research conclusions, you can find that. They've written a couple of books about it as well. And Bob basically says, unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago. He basically says at the end of all of this, look, we have proved beyond statistical doubt that human intention affects the reality around us. It's now up to us to work out the conclusions of that. One of the products that they created as a spin-off of that were these mind lamps you can see here. And I have one of them here that we'll be playing with later. And what it does is it has a random event generator in the bottom. That's one of these coin flippers, basically. And through your intention, you can affect the color of the lamp. It's really cool. So we'll play with that a little bit later. So let me just show you a couple of other people who've spoken about this. Arthur Young, who invented the helicopter, his statement was, "The universe is a process put in motion by purpose." Universe is a process put in motion by purpose. So remember that image I showed you of the back up here of the tension between seed and potential. Well, that tension, your potential, your intention is your purpose, and that's what pulls the torus into motion, quite literally. So that was Arthur Young. So intention literally means to bring something into tension between current reality and possible reality. And it's in that creative tension that manifestation happens. So it's quite literally a creative process when you work intentionally with reality. You are in the process of increasing the probability of something manifesting. And there's a nice quote here from Michelle Small-Wright, who's done great work in this area. Co-creative science is her stuff. She says, based on your definition of what you're working on, which creates the boundaries, what are we talking about here? What's our intention related? The direction that you want things to go and why you're doing it, the purpose, based on those three things, the order, the structure, the organization, the way things are put together, and life vitality patterns and rhythms that will best respond to the information you've supplied. So nature creates those. Based on your definition, direction, and purpose, nature or life creates the order, organization, and life vitality patterns and rhythms that will best respond to the information you have supplied. Your intention is basically information that you're uploading into the subtle fields, if you think of that light spectrum, outside of the reality that we can currently see. But think about it as, you know, this material reality that you can see around you is a certain density of probability waves. And those waves, when they come into a certain coherence, they become what they call standing waves. So those waves lock in, and that's when they come into the density that we can actually experience with our normal senses. But until then, those waves are flowing as energy of potential out there, informed by information. So information is literally coming into form. So with your intention, you're creating a tension in that information process and increasing the likelihood that a pattern moves from the more subtle dimensions into the manifest dimensions. So you can make it all fluffy and spiritual if we want, but it's actually very real and very normal and completely backed up by the new science. So just some definitions here when we're talking about intention, and how does this relate to other forms of parapsychology and things, for example. You can think of two types of practice. One is a receptive practice, where you're picking up information from those subtle fields. So that's just paying attention to things, maybe quieting your mind, you know, through a mindfulness practice and getting things just drop into your awareness, right? Or other things, which is, you know, related to it, telepathy. They might call it clairvoyance, precognition, doing a reading of somebody, or testing or scanning a bigger system in relationship to the eco-intention practice that we do. So we work with these practices as part of large-scale systems. You can work with the energetic architecture of organizations and pieces of land. And that's what we're running a program on in California, 13th, 17th of September, to build the first English-speaking community of practitioners who can do this at a large scale. Up until now, it's been limited to Germany and the Netherlands. For the last 20, 25 years, all tested, practice, research done with Mikhail Gorbachev in the US. The Academy of Science is out there who proved that it had an effect. So when we say testing and scanning, we're talking about how we apply that to large-scale systems. And the active practice is the act of trying to influence those fields. So receptive, you're just picking up information. You need to quiet your mind, pick up the information. active practice is trying to actively influence that field. So using your intention to create tension in the field. Psychokinesis, to change matter, healings, or balancing, as we talk about for large-scale systems in the eco-intention work. This is great. The great work has been done by Serena Roney-Dougal, as you can see at the bottom, with a fantastic book, Where Science and Magic Meet, which was her PhD dissertation that she turned into a book. And she looked at all the research. Also, a lot of this came out of the military, because during the Cold War, they were all actively working with how people could, for example, see places. If you gave them geographic coordinates, they could just tune in and see what was there. It's what they called remote viewing. So this is actually, by the establishment, actually very much recognizes that this is a recognized dimension of reality, and indeed police often use psychics to try to find people if they're lost as one particular tool. So receptive and active practice, and obviously intention is an active practice. That's what we're going to be working on soon. So just so you can see what Serena did, is she went around and she looked at all the different proven psychic practices out there and summarized what were the conditions for success. So if somebody, for example, was located somewhere else you were connected to, and they did a drawing, or they were looking at a landscape, they were looking at something, and you just had to pick up what they were looking at, and so the success rate in that was statistically significant. But they found that people who had a meditation or mindfulness practice were more effective at that, because they created these conditions. So a relaxation, what you're doing in that relaxation is you're creating an openness in your system for information. You're not distracted so much by the material world around you. So you're tuning in to the more subtle informational realm. You're expanding your bandwidth on that spectrum. You quiet your analytical mind. So that's obviously helps if you have a mindfulness practice who's kind of questioning everything, or what am I doing? What's going on here? Well, what that does is that gets into the parts rather than connecting to the whole, because it gets into a discussion about stuff. So you need to help an analytical mind quieten down for a bit. Grounding yourself, so connecting to the earth, feeling yourself grounded, that helps your system relax and helps you drop any stuff that you don't really need to do this. Curiosity, and this is an important one, because it's not about trying really hard. If you try hard, what happens is you do this, you kind of frown, you try hard, and your system contracts. Look, it contracts when you try. Energy moves and information flows through your system when you're open. So that means a sense of curiosity and playfulness, and not being really attached to seeing something or to creating a certain effect is key to effectiveness. So there's a lack of ego, as you will see in that. You're not worried about how well you perform. You're curious to see what's going to happen and to see what you pick up. Openness is about when information comes in, that often something comes in right at the beginning and you dismiss it because it's weird and you don't understand it. You're kind of, oh, where's the real information? But you have to watch that very carefully, because often it's the first thing that comes in that is the information you're looking for, and anything after that is often your mind's interpretation of what's happened or the question that you've asked. But information drops in like that. It's very quick. So learning to free yourself of self-censorship, so not censoring information that comes into your system, maintaining a spirit of openness to what comes, and then noting what it is without judgment, noting, oh, that's interesting, so that's a curiosity, I wonder what that is, making a note of it, seeing what else drops in, but not, what's very hard, in fact, I think it's impossible, was what they've concluded, to engage both your intuitive mind like this and your analytical mind at the same time, which is why when you're doing these kind of practices, you have to quieten down your analytical mind, open up your intuitive mind in this way, and as stuff comes in, make a note of it. Because I've noticed what actually often happens is when you flip back to your analytical mind, you can't remember what you experienced when you were in the intuitive mind. So it's important to write it down, but don't start thinking about it. If you start thinking about it, you flip back to your analytical mind and you lose the connection to the subtle information fields. And another condition is basic. There's, just like if there are, bugs around and stuff before you eat, you wash your hands, basic hygiene. So there's also basic hygiene practices energetically that you can learn. And that's an important part of also what we'll be learning in this program in September in California on the eco-intention, is how do you work with your own psychic hygiene so that you're clean and clear, and that you pick up the information that you need, and not have it filtered through your own judgments or things that are in your own field. So protection is learning just to make sure that no negative stuff gets into your field and influences your objective viewing of information that comes in. So those are some of the conditions that they discovered for success in receptive practice. In the active practice, here's a bit more detail now. Important to pay attention now, because this is what you're going to try. And it's quite interesting, because I've been thinking, I wonder how many people are going to be on the call. Maybe not many, maybe a few. And those people in the moment will also be affecting the experiment that we're doing, but also the people who do it, watching the video afterwards, will also affect the experiment. This dimension of reality exists outside of time and space. It's not linear. Our material reality we've constructed as linear. Our experience of time at the moment is linear. By the way, our experience of time hasn't always been linear. Back in kind of more in the tribal societies, we experienced time as circular, as cyclical. We didn't experience it as linear until we got agricultural and started planting stuff to preserve for the longer term. No judgment on what is good and what is bad, but linear time is not a thing that has permanently be with us. It's a stage and phase of development. We have adopted a perspective of linear time, but it's not a permanent feature of our reality. It's also a choice. And what you find when you look at more the quantum level, when the particles and things, where you change one part of it and the other instantly changes, there's no time in between that. So the people who are watching the recording of this, you are just as much as the others having an impact on this experiment, which is very hard for our rational mind to wrap its thinking around. So just let it go. Don't worry about it. Don't pass any judgments. Notice that analytical mind being busy and say, hi, I'm going to ask you to shut up in a minute so that I can do some fun work here. But so moving on to these conditions for success in active practice, because this is what we're all going to try in a minute. First one that she discovered, Serena, in her work, in her research, was that you have to focus on the end result, not on the process of how it's achieved. So what you have to keep in your mind is the end state of what it is you want, your intention is around. And not just mentally, but also emotionally. So you need to see the reality that you're wanting to create, and you need to feel in your body emotionally how it feels to be in that reality. And then you've got to let it go, because you can't plan or know how that is going to manifest, because there's so much going on. There's so many aspects of reality that you have no clue about. In fact, the scientists admit that they only really understand 4 to 5% of reality. The other 96 or 95% they describe as dark matter and dark energy, because they don't really know what it is. So what happens when we upload that intention is that life starts to attract things that are going to bring that intention closer to reality. And what you'll notice is that things start to cross your path. Things start to happen, that synchronicities start to happen if you do this effectively. The important thing is that it's not up to you to plan how that intention is going to manifest. You then need to relax and pay attention to how life organizes itself to bring your intention into manifestation, should the timing and the conditions be right for that intention to be manifested. So there's got to be a lack of a release of any ego involvement in knowing how that's going to come, and in fact knowing whether it's going to happen at all, which we'll come to in a second. So the focus on the end result, both in terms of seeing it in your mind's eye and feeling in your body what it's like to have that result. And then you can consciously invite other entities to help you out. So whether you like the idea of angels, or whether you like the idea of gnomes, or whether you like the idea of whatever it is, spirits or whatever, you can just say, by the way, anybody out there, just help me out with this practice. Because however you frame it, and some people would frame it as functions of an energetic system, some people would frame it as energetic beings that are out there, but it's basically the same thing. It's just a different way of talking about them. So just invite help, but they only respond. There is only a response when you request help. So at that point is, oh yeah, request help. You don't have to do it yourself. Ask for support. Don't be too serious. Lightheartedness and fun work best. So this is like the curiosity thing, right? Don't really try hard to manifest this thing because the energy won't flow. So it's about a sense of amusement. Somebody said to me once, it's like the energy you're looking for is like watching a little puppy play. There's a little inner smile that probably makes its way to your mouth, a sense of fondness. There is a focus, but there's a fondness, a curiosity, a lightness to it all, and a fun. So that works best when people aren't taking it seriously, but when you're just in it for the experiment, for the curiosity, to see what, how life is going to respond to it. Then she found this very interesting effect, which is that the impact seems to happen after you have finished trying. So it's related to the previous one. It's the moment that you give up that suddenly happens. So maybe you've experienced this before. You're, all right, God, you're looking really hard for your car keys or whatever. You tried really hard and you're kind of frustrated, and then you just give up. And then bing, oh, there they are. It's what she calls the release of effort effect. And it has a certain mischievous to it, which is basically keeping our ego in check. So don't try too hard again. That just let go of effort. It's more a playful experimentation that you do. And then the final condition she discovered was that group work can help you get around any disbelief that you might have that you are making it happen. Because if you're doing it with the group, then, well, it wasn't you. But if it's just you doing it, then your cognitive mind might start to panic and go, well, holy cow, my understanding of reality doesn't actually match what is happening here. Oh, it can't have been me doing it. It can't have been me. It must have been something else. And so your ego starts, and your analytical mind starts churning around, creating a story to justify why it wasn't you. So having a group with you do it sometimes helps to so that you don't have to kind of make it you who made it happen. That can be a challenge sometimes for your rational mind. The other thing, which, by the way, the Princeton people found, is that the impact of intention increases exponentially when it's done in a group. So what they found is a group who had a shared purpose had a bigger impact on the random event generator, on their research, than an individual. So that's very important when you think about your organizations and groups working together, making sure they're aligned around a shared purpose. Because the greater that alignment is, and the more explicit it is made, and the more people feel it, the more you're influencing what would otherwise be a random reality around you. So the more you're increasing the probability of your purpose actually manifesting. All right. So we're going to try something. So I've never tried doing this virtually with a virtual audience in time and out of time. So we'll do it with both of these technologies for fun, see what happens. And what I'm going to do is I will basically be holding them up to the camera so that you can see them. So I'll expand this. So hopefully this will work. I'll just make this bigger. Yeah, we can put that there, can't we? Make that bigger. I think that's about as big as it goes. And let me just bring the random event generator up here. So just so you can, you actually see what it is. This is this box. This box here is the random event generator, and this is attached to a little laptop here. And it looks back to front to me, but I hope it doesn't look back to front to you, the letters. And what this is this is the software that they worked with at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research to do all this testing. And they've made it available. You can just buy this stuff. So I use it a lot for research and practicing with groups and things like that. So what we're going to do to start with is, you see this one of the screen over here that has the lines going like this. So there's a red line going up, blue line down, and a white one in the middle. The middle line is random. So if the squiggly line stays around the middle line, it means it's kind of happening randomly. What we're going to do is we're going to choose to try to make the line go up or to try to make the line go down, okay? And so what I suggest we do, and we're going to try it in a couple of different ways, because I found it works interestingly in different ways with different groups, we're going to try and make the line go up first. So what you're going to see when I show you the screen in a sec is you're going to see this, like the picture there, and you're going to see the white kind of arc in the middle line, and then you'll see a squiggly line starting to emerge at this end. And what we're going to see if we can do is make the line go up. All right, now remember the conditions. So what you have to try as your practice is to see the end result. So to see in your mind's eye that line up and to feel the excitement or whatever it is you would feel if that happened. And not to get caught up in, well, oh no, the line is going down or something else is happening. Stay non-attached, but keep the vision in your mind of the line going up. So if you need to just kind of quieten yourself for a minute, take a moment to settle your mind, settle your analytical mind, do whatever little quick mindfulness thing you need to do to create a connection to your intuitive knowing. And then we're going to try this, all right? We're collectively going to try first to put the line up. So at the beginning, you can choose, do you want the line to go up or down? I hope you're going to be able to see this okay. We'll try it. I can see it okay on my thing here. So hopefully it'll come across okay. I'll hold it up as close as I can in a sec. So I'm going to press the high button. All right, so we're going to try to make the line go up. Seeing if I can increase the brightness here at all. Does this increase it? No. Let's try it out. So we're going to press the high button. And here we go. Okay. So you can see that red line. There we go. So what we're looking to do is just imagine in our mind's eye that at the end of this little session, we've got a nice red line that has gone up and a nice red line going up, and the feeling that that gives us, you know, just that end result. Keep it playful. Well, there we are. Not bad, as you can see. Not bad. It's so, you know, right at the beginning, that red line at the top, the arc, is statistically significant. So for the first bit, we had statistically significant result that showed we were affecting the randomness. If it had really been random, it would have all stayed around the middle line. So you can see, you know, we seem to have kept it above the random line. Probably what happened is that we saw it go up first, and then we started getting excited about it, going, oh, look, we're doing it. We started thinking about it. And we engaged like another part of our mind. This is often what happens. And so the line, you know, started dropping down again, and then we relaxed again, and it picked up, and then we started getting excited about the fact that we were picking it up, and then it dropped down. So, good result. Well done, folks, both in the present and in the future. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do another one. I'm going to ask you to do it with your eyes shut. So I'm not going to show you the screen. You can continue to look at the screen if you want. But I suggest you do it with your eyes shut and just visualize in your mind's eye. We'll do the up again because we created a pattern with that, the up, and see if that, see what happens if we do it with our eyes shut. So let's capture this screenshot. Let's do another run. Right, so I'm just going to actually hold it down here. I'll tell you when I've started. We're going up again. All right, so try to keep it up. I'm not going to look at it either. I'm going to keep my eyes closed. Next run, we're going up. Okay, ready, relax. Close your eyes. See that line completely up and the feeling that that gives you, and off we go. Okay, I guess you're curious to see the results. Well, here we go. So, like last time, we had a serious, statistically significant hit at the beginning and kept that going for a while, and then it dropped off. So I suspect what happened, as you'll know if you meditate, is that at some point, if you had your eyes closed, other stuff probably started to interfere, other thoughts. I wonder how long this is going to last. I wonder if it's finished yet. Hey, I wonder how well we're doing. I wonder if it's real. Oh, I'm getting hungry. Oh, I need to go to the loo. Whatever. Your mental mind probably kicked in again. But, really interesting. Interesting that, we definitely got a statistically significant result to start with, and then it dropped off for whatever reason. I thought what we could do as one last one with this technology, because people are going, oh, let's try the down one as well. Let's try down, and I'll give you the choice, okay? I will hold it up to the screen so you can see what's going on, and you can play with play with it yourself and see what happens if you keep your eyes open. Notice when your analytical mind kicks in, and just experiment with it, keep it light. But we'll see if we can get the line to go down this time. So down, gravity, the line drops down. And so you want to see in your mind's eye the result of the blue, the line kind of dropping right down to the bottom. And it'll be a blue line this time, so the blue line dropping right down, and the result at the end of it. So whatever you can do to create that feeling, that picture of it being down, the feeling in your body maybe of gravity, and the feeling of having achieved something with it. And then choose whether you want to keep, I'll hold it up, so choose whether you want to keep looking at it or whether you want to do it with your eyes closed. And we'll see what happens. And then we'll play with the lamp for a bit, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, here we go. Wow, look at that. Good job. Well done. Congratulations, you have statistically significantly impacted the otherwise random nature of reality. Good job. You see, isn't this cool? Like, you know, it doesn't have to be all woo-woo. Here's the kind of scientific evidence, 28 years of research. They did this again and again and again and again and showed beyond statistical data. I've never done this virtually, so this is really cool. Like, we don't even have to be in the same physical room together, wherever we are all over the world. And as I said, their experiments showed that even people doing this, watching the recording in the future, have impacted the results. Who knows? That's kind of would fit the theory, as it were. So nice job. There we are. We got it going down pretty significantly. Good one. So what we can do now, just to play for a bit, is the lamp, because the lamp is fun. And a bit more challenging, I think, but let me not put that belief into your mind. No, you know, my kids can do it easily. They can come up, I want the lamp to be red. Boom, red. So this is the mind lamp. Let's turn it on. So this has the same technology that you saw in the black box, sitting in the bottom of the mind lamp down here. And there are two modes you can have. You can have it rotating through colors, like one of those Philips lamps, and then you can try to influence, the color it goes to. I've got it on standard on the white setting. And so what we're going to do is see if we can turn it a color. So let's see if we can turn it red. All the same conditions apply, okay? All the same conditions apply. So you relax. If you're watching it and that's distracting, you might want to close your eyes. If you're happy to watch it, whatever, notice what your mind does. But the key is to see it in your mind's eye. See it bright red. And what does it feel like to see that beautiful bright red color in this lamp? So quieten your mind, remember. Allow the analytical mind to quieten down. Get into that space of playfulness and curiosity and lightness. And see if you can imagine this lamp turning a beautiful bright shade of red. You've got your eyes closed, just open them. Color's not coming across very well there, but it's actually, at the base, it's red now. You can see that it was red when we started it up. It was blue, but it's actually red down here. It's now fading away, of course, as we stopped tuning in. So that was nice, a little, you could see what happened first is that we tuned in, but we were probably still excited about the last experiment and in our minds, and it did start turning color. So that means we were impacting otherwise random events, but it turned blue. And then after we did, remember I gave that little instruction of quieten your mind, tune in, see it in red. When we did that, then it started turning red. So if you need proof, if you don't just believe it anyway, you just did it. You just, with your intention, influenced. Oh, by the way, it's got a nice shade of green right now. You influenced what would otherwise be random reality with your intention. And that's exactly what happens with intention. With intention, you increase the probability of something coming into the manifest realm. And hopefully those conditions that I described will help you with that work. The more aligned your intention is with life, with what life would naturally want to manifest, the more likely it is to manifest. So, get me a new Tesla or whatever it is. Maybe that's in line, with life's purpose. But you have more of a chance if you really feel that it's resonant with service to life as a whole. Then you're increasing the chances, the probability of it manifesting, just because there's going to be more aspects of life that are going to want to work and collaborate with you to make it happen. What's key is that as humans, we have that ability to upload our intention or our will consciously. And that gives directionality, but there are all sorts of other dimensions of life that work out exactly how that's going to manifest. So the key is when you upload your intention to let it go and allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised about how life actually manifests that intention. So don't ignore anything, like something crosses your path, call so-and-so, or a mail drops in, or whatever. Don't try to logically understand how one action is going to lead to that intention. You just need to trust that the things that cross your path, if you're holding your intention with lightness and compassion and fun and love, and, for a higher purpose, trust that these things will come across your path. Pay attention to them. If you miss them once, don't worry, they'll come around again. They'll keep coming around. But as you notice them, don't try to understand why you have to do a certain thing or what's happening. Just do it, and then just notice again. Act and sense. Act, tune in, notice what happens, take the next natural step, and then notice again. Keep your intention clear the whole time. Hold it all with lightness and playfulness. It might be that it's just not time for your intention to manifest, right? Maybe a little bit later, oh, hey, that thing that I was working on, here it comes. Later than you, maybe you've given up. Remember the release of effort effect? Maybe you've given up, and then boom, oh, there it is. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was certainly fun for me to try that experiment. If you are interested in finding out a little bit more about all of this, we are running this program out in California, September the 13th to the 17th, where you learn the psychic tools, you learn the practice of how to get yourself into the space where you can effectively work with your intention. But more importantly, you learn with how to apply it to large-scale systems, how to apply it to your house, how to apply it to your garden, how to apply it to a space, to keep a space energetically clean, how to work with large pieces of land and organizations, how to work with the energetic architecture at those levels. It's really incredible work. When I discovered this, when was it now? It must have been like 2008 or something in the Netherlands. I was amazed because it took all the ideas that are in kind of Lynn McTaggart's work on the field and Rupert Sheldrake's work on morphogenetic fields and all of that, and it put them into a practice. This was like research practice they'd been doing for many, many years, properly researched, where when they were balancing nature, they would have the scientists measure the vitality of the area that they were working with energetically. By the way, lamp's gone red. Well done. And they were, see, release of effort effect. And they would measure the effect on the land they were balancing, and they would have a plot next to it that wasn't being balanced. And they concluded, beyond statistical doubt, that the plot they were balancing energetically increased in vitality compared to the plot that wasn't. So all this research has been done. The reason it's not well known is because they could never get it published, because the journals wouldn't accept it. It just didn't fit the current scientific paradigm. So that's when they decided to actually train people in it, because they felt the only way to let the world know that this works is for people to experience it themselves. So what we'll be doing is we'll have this 5-day intensive. We'll introduce you to the basics. There's a follow-up 3-day online module that would give you the equivalent of the whole first year vocational training in eco-intention. And then if you want to continue with that practice, the total practice is actually a 4-year program if you wanted to continue. In the second year, you work with your own home and your own business if you have one. Key is to apply it to yourself first before you start applying it to anybody else. In the third year, you work with other people's organizations. And in the 4th year, you can work with other people's organizations, but also more abstract projects that maybe don't have a specific place and location. Having a place and location makes it easier to ground and get hold of the architecture. more abstract projects that maybe just have a name but don't have a location or an in-person organization somewhere, a little harder to get hold of and work with. So that's what you work with in the fourth year. So, you know, as I said, it's all been in the Netherlands and Germany up until now. This is the first time we're really properly taking it into the English-speaking world. The reason that I think this work is important is because I feel it'll help nature and it'll help our organizations to be able to engage with the complexity and the challenges, particularly around climate change and things that we're facing. It creates the conditions for them to be able to self-organize naturally as living organisms, to be able to find the solutions that they need from the information field to a rapidly changing world. For example, one of the projects they did where the land was getting drier, when they balanced the trees in that area, their roots grew further to connect to the water table that had dropped down, whereas in the area that hadn't been balanced, the roots didn't. So basically that solution was they were given access to the solution by helping that natural area connect to information that would otherwise have been outside the solution set that they had. So that, for example, one example. It's really cool work. It's right on the edge, but it's now completely backed up by science. All the new quantum work completely can explain how all of this can happen. But you need to experience it yourself, really. So if anybody's interested, wants to know more, let us know. I'd be happy. Feel free to send me a direct message as well if you want. Happy to talk to you about it. I hope you enjoyed the session, and see you around. Don't forget, keep that intention clear. Bye for now.